I specifically see in like Broncos country that he does have that like athleticism to maybe be a Taysom Hill for the Broncos. Who knows? Maybe we could see him in some packages, like maybe some run plays, or I mean, he's got that build to potentially take a workload like that if Sean Payton does see that potential in him. Welcome back to another episode of the Broncos Avenue podcast. I'm your host, Amir Farrell, with my co-host, Evan Petruk. Today, the Denver Broncos have made a shocking move out of nowhere, according to Denver Broncos insider Mike Kliss. We're going to talk about that and some big news with the Broncos edge rusher Nik Bonitto and his current contract status and what he's looking for in the market. But without further ado, Evan, how are you doing, man? Another episode, another day.
Yeah, another day, another dollar, man.
Exactly.
Day by day.
Living the life. So let's go straight into it. The Broncos are bringing in former Falcons third-round pick Desmond Ridder to take part in their rookie minicamp on a veteran tryout basis. He started in 18 career games playing for the Falcons and Raiders, went 8-10 in those games, also played with the Arizona Cardinals during the 2024 preseason, but suffered a concussion in his game against the Broncos, coincidentally, which eventually led to his release before he signed with the Las Vegas Raiders. You probably know him for his famous quote with the Falcons, quote, "I'm not leaving until I get a Super Bowl." Well, that aged like milk. What are your thoughts on this addition to the room, and could you see him beating out Sam Ehlinger for the third string spot here in Denver?
I could totally see him beating out Sam Ehlinger. Nothing against him.
What about winning a Super Bowl?
I mean, he can win a Super Bowl in the practice squad. I think those guys still get rings. So it's realistically just a competition in the room for rookie minicamp. You know, I'm not sure if it's exactly even a competition, more so just so that they can have more quarterbacks playing, more balls being thrown, so they can get more reps out of the other skill position players. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're battling for a quarterback 3 spot. Obviously, Bo Nix is quarterback 1. He's not going anywhere. And obviously, Jarrett Stidham is quarterback 2. So I don't see a world where it is a very impactful move. But I could see either of these guys being the third quarterback. And I feel like Sean Payton might actually take Desmond Ridder over Sam Ehlinger, just because just the fact that, kind of like the Zach Wilson thing, like Sean Payton kind of likes to have that quarterback resurrection, like turn a quarterback into a backup or a starter kind of thing, like a fringe starter. So I think that Desmond Ridder's got a little bit more potential. I think they're probably around the same age, Desmond Ridder and Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah.
But Desmond Ridder, former third-round pick, he's got the athletic traits. So, I mean, he's not the smartest with the ball in his hands, but I mean, Zach Wilson made a lot of mistakes, and I think Zach Wilson could be a really solid relief, even a solid starter in the league. But I mean, obviously Zach Wilson was a second overall pick. It doesn't really compare to a third rounder, but I think that it's more so just for competition at the skill positions.
Yeah, Ehlinger's actually turning 27 years old in September, and Desmond Ridder will be turning 26 in August. I think they'll go Ehlinger just because he kind of has that. I think he's going to be like a healthy scratch, just like Zach Wilson. But some people have mentioned this. I specifically see in like Broncos country that he does have that like athleticism to maybe be a Taysom Hill for the Broncos. Who knows? Maybe we could see him in some packages, like maybe some run plays, or I mean, he's got that build to potentially take a workload like that if Sean Payton does see that potential in him. But I think it's really cool just seeing like Sean Payton bring in these like project quarterbacks that have failed with their original teams and have kind of been journey players, and he's now bringing them into Denver and like giving them a new life, like kind of reviving their careers in a sense. We saw it with Zach Wilson last year after being just absolutely torn to shreds by the New York media, New York fan base when he was with the Jets, and then comes into Denver, has a phenomenal training camp in preseason, especially preseason against the Cardinals, coincidentally enough, since Desmond Ridder played with the Cardinals against the Broncos, and maybe he kind of got a look at him in that game where he actually, I believe, was like 10 of 16, 114 yards, didn't turn over the ball at all, but then unfortunately had that hit by Dondre Tillman, which put him in the concussion protocol, then then he got released and signed with the Raiders before the regular season. But I think it's cool, man. Maybe he can, just like Zach Wilson had a big year and signed with the Dolphins and is now their backup quarterback in that room with Tua and Quinn Ewers. Maybe now Desmond Ridder can come into Denver and potentially get a 1-year deal with his next team.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. It's kind of like this is gonna sound bad saying it, but it kind of seems like it's like almost Sean Payton's hobby. Like I know that in my trade, guys will go to work all day and mechanic, and then they'll have a project car when they get home. And it's like I don't do that because the last thing I want to do when I go home is more work. But it's almost like a little no, it sounds bad saying
It's a
it's a
really good
hobby, but
analogy.
it's yeah, it's just like you know what I mean. Like clearly none of these guys that he's bringing in are going to start over Bo Nix, but it's really cool that he's doing that and that he can see the potential because at the end he's one of the best quote unquote quarterback whisperers
Hmm.
in the league for sure. Just like the fact that the way that he understands the the position and the offensive mind that he has, and just like his kind of style of coaching the quarterback position, I think really helps these guys and guys like Zach Wilson. Like obviously, Desmond Ridder got scrutinized, but like poor Zach Wilson. Like if I was in the NFL, the last place I would want to play is New York. Like that media is
Exactly.
so cutthroat, man. Like they blow it because it's just such a huge market that it would really suck being a young, talented but raw quarterback playing in New York.
Yeah, 100% agree. Um, we'll see where the quarterback room ends up going this offseason. Also, the Broncos offensive linebacker Nik Bonitto is looking for a new contract extension worth over $20 million per year. What are your thoughts on that news? It was already reported earlier this offseason that that Bonitto is looking for a contract extension, but now thanks to Denver Gazette's Chris Thompson, we kind of know a ballpark of what him and his agent are looking for. What do you think about this? Do you think the Broncos should give it to him? Do you think he deserves not as much, or do you think he deserves more? Or what are your overall thoughts on this?
I think if he keeps up this level of production that he's had, like obviously it was 1 year, but if he continues on the path of his 1 year, getting him for just over $20 million a year is an absolute steal for one of the premier edge rushers in the league. So I would 100% give him exactly what he is asking for because if he keeps this up, that price tag is only going up. Now, I understand what you could say. It could be a little bit of a fluke. I don't think he's going to get a contract extension before the season starts, but I definitely think that if he's performing very well the first, 5-6 weeks of the season, I could definitely see them throwing that. I think it was like what 21 and a half, 22 million reported or something like that a
Yeah,
year. And
around
like
there.
I would 100% give him that money because the potential that Nik Bonitto has and the flashes that he showed last year, almost being in the race for defensive player of the year, getting that caliber of edge rusher who can destroy a game. We saw it multiple times last year, especially against the Colts, like just derailed them and just coming up big plays, big pass rushes, and getting a premier edge rusher for that $22 million price tag. I would not be complaining about that one bit.
Yeah, guys like Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, Daniel Hunter, they're making around 35 mil to 40 mil per year. Like, why would you not want Benito for half that price? I mean, bro, half that price. Benito at one point was considered like a DPOY favorite over Sertan, if you remember. It was like the middle of the season. It wasn't until like later in the season when people really started, giving Sertan his flowers that he deserved for DPOY. But yeah, at one point it was like Nick Bonitto who was like the favorite. So if you can get him for 20 to even to 25 mil per year, that's really good. Jonathan Cooper signed 4 years, 54. That's like just under 15 mil per year. So having those two guys and those contracts, like with that type of value, those are massive steals. So I don't know why any Broncos fans would be opposed to this. If we do give him this type of contract extension, it's almost guaranteed that like John Franklin Myers and like anybody else that's going to want a contract extension, they're likely going to be on their way out.
I definitely think they'll still pay Zach Allen, though. I think that John Franklin Myers is on his way out, and I think the contingency plan with that was drafting, Savion Jones. Sorry, his name
Yeah.
slipped my mind for a second. But the potential of Savion Jones is definitely there, and especially, he'll have that one this year. Obviously, if John Franklin Myers gets traded, which I don't think he will, unless he holds out longer than training camp. But if if Savion Jones can really step up, I think paying Bonitto and Zach Allen is 100% happening either way, regardless. So unfortunately, as much as I love John Franklin Myers, he's either going to have to take a pay cut or he's getting shipped out of town. So, but I definitely think they're prepared for that situation. Especially, I'm almost positive this contract talk with Bonitto happened before it got reported,
For
and
sure.
even before the draft. So I'm assuming they drafted Savion Jones as like like I said, a contingency plan. They were expecting a situation where John Franklin Myers holds out and they're not going to be able to pay him, especially with the Bonitto and the Zach Allen extension. And like I said, neither of those guys are going anywhere. Two of the best players in the league defensively, and I don't see either of them leaving. And unfortunately, John Franklin Myers is the odd man out there.
Yeah, you mentioned Zach Allen. I completely forgot about him. This is gonna get a little tricky because I definitely do think they want to give Zach Allen his money, but you signed Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga, both got massive money. You gave Jonathan Cooper money. You're giving Nik Bonitto a contract extension. Like, it's gonna get interesting. I
Correct me
think
if I'm wrong. Didn't Jonathan Cooper, didn't his contract get restructured this year, even though he got paid last year?
I think he did
I think
actually.
he restructured some back end stuff. So I definitely think with the Russ contract being, because if they get a contract extension, it's not going to count to the cap this year. It will be to the cap next year, and the Russ contract will be completely gone. So that
Yeah,
gives them a little bit more leeway with that. It's still going to be tight, but it always is, man. These guys optimize the cap space. They get paid a shit ton of money to be able to optimize and be able to understand not loopholes, but how to work the cap properly. And using these contract restructures and pushing money to the back end and having this cash rich ownership. Like, I think we're almost 2 times richer than the second richest ownership group in the league or something like
it's
that. I
us and the
remember.
Commanders. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy cash rich ownership group, and that gives you a huge advantage in pushing stuff to the back end and giving people cash incentives and contract incentives on there that don't count towards the cap. So I definitely think that they'll be able to jump through some hula hoops. They've been, look at what they've done with this Russ contract, like the largest dead cap hit in NFL history, and they've made it work. Right, we made the playoffs last year with it. 56 or 54 million dollars. It's 32 this year. It's 0 next year. So I definitely think they'll be able to make it work.
Yeah. We'll see where they go with these contracts. You mentioned the Russ thing, like being off the books. That's going to be huge. And I'm expecting when they re-signed or they extend, Nik Bonitto and Zach Allen, I'm expecting not that huge of a free agency next year. And that'll probably be the right move anyways. Like, we'll see where the holes, because right now we can sit here and guess which holes are going to be on the defense next year, but we truly don't know. But if I had to guess, I think they're going to go a little bit more heavy in the draft next year with defense rather than kind of splashing on free agency like they've done the last several years. So we'll see where they go with that. Let us know down in the comments below. What do you think? Should the Broncos extend both Zach Allen and Nik Bonitto? I feel like it's a pretty given answer. Like, they both highly deserve it. And let us know what you guys think about the Desmond Ridder signing. But with that being said, I'm your host, Amir Farrell, with my co-host, Evan Petruk. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.